People, welcome back to another edition of Gen Sports Corner. This is the live edition, man. We got some pressing news to go over with regards to the NFL. For the Facebook fan, make sure you go over to the YouTube page and like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. But you seen what happened today with the NFL with the rule changes on special teams, as well as some of the other minor changes, and then obviously the hip drop tackle, as they quote unquote called it, and how they're trying to take that out of the game. So let's go ahead and talk about that. So first, let's go ahead and look at the good. So here's some of the good rule changes that I liked. First one, shout out to Dan Campbell, head coach of the Lions. Replay assist. Now you'll be able to um, use replay assist to challenge intentional grounding, roughing the passer, and hitting out of bounds penalties, which is good because there's you already have the NFL stacking the deck in the favor of the offense as it is. So this is a good way of at least giving the defense some goodwill, right? So intentional grounding, we see that all the time, especially when it's painfully obvious and the calls get missed for whatever reason. At least you can now go back on replay, or I would suppose the officials could use replay to go ahead and look at if it was intentional grounding or not. Was he outside the pocket? Same thing with roughing the passer. If you get like a flag thrown because somebody's arm was too close to Patrick Mahomes' helmet and they throw a flag for that, at least now you can go and challenge it and say, hey, he wasn't even close to touching them. This is going to cost us in a big spot in the fourth quarter. Now at least we can challenge it and get this overturned so that we don't have games decided by, bad calls or missed calls, such as that. Because roughing the passer, that flag is thrown incessantly. They always err on the side of caution when it comes to that. So at least they'll be able to go back and clean up some of the mistakes and mishaps that they commit with that mindset. And then lastly, the hits out of bounds. That's that's very subjective. So at least the last one is definitely subjective. So at least you can go back retrospectively and be able to change a bad call. So I like that. Second rule change was now you can use a practice squad player as your emergency number three quarterback. The only caveat is that he had to have been on the 53-man roster the year prior. But this is a great rule now because before you can only have two quarterbacks on your active day roster. It wasn't like that back in the 2000s, from what I can recall. I don't remember what year the rule was changed, but you've had so many situations where look at the NFC Championship game between my Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers. You knock out Brock Purdy early in the game, and then the second quarterback, I believe it was Josh Johnson, he got knocked out in pretty quick succession after that, and then you're down to your third string quarterback, who I don't know if it was a quarterback or not, or I think the third quarterback might have been Christian McCaffrey at that point, right? There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to hold three quarterbacks on the active roster. So that's a great rule actually. And in retrospect, it would have made the game a lot more entertaining between the Eagles and the 49ers had they at least had some quarterback on the field instead of having Christian McCaffrey trying to take snaps from under center, or Brock Purdy taking snaps and everybody knows he can't throw and he just has to hand it off to Christian McCaffrey. Like you don't want to have scenarios like that anymore. So that's a good rule change. Another one that's really good is the trade deadline is moved until after week 9. I love that rule. You have more time to be able to see what your roster looks like, how the season's going, and it's going to change the way that teams make movements on the trade market. So that's a good one. Now let's go ahead and look at the bad. And the first one, before I get to the hip drop one, is now the NFL is scheduling a game on Christmas in 2024, this upcoming season, even though it's on a Wednesday. So not only are you making them play on a holiday where they should be with their families, with it not being on a weekend, but now you're going to give them another short week, right? Or if the team plays on Sunday, are they going to play again on Wednesday, right? Or are you going to have the teams that have a bye week during that week and they play on Christmas Day? I don't know. There's not enough details out on that one, so I need to see more about that. Um, let's go ahead and look at the comments real quick. What's going on, Chris? He said, "What? Never talk about Brock." Listen, it is what it is, homie. It is what it is. But I think the rule change obviously is going to be in your favor, but it's good for the league overall. But let's go ahead before we get to the kickoff rule changes. Let's go ahead and get over to the hip drop tackle. Now, I've never even heard of this term before, and if it was a term before, it's not something that was ever really brought up. But this is a tackle that we've been seeing more and more in recent times. And we had it happen last year with Tony Pollard, who was the running back for the Dallas Cowboys. I can't remember who tackled him. It might have been a 49er. And they came down with their weight on his leg and he got injured. So, pretty much what a hip drop tackle is typically when a defender is running alongside you, parallel to you, or they're trying to catch up to you from behind, and instead of doing a horse collar tackle, which you can't do, or reaching out and trying to grab their legs, which you might miss, they reach out for the waist, wrap around, and then use their body weight, i.e., pick their feet up off the ground and use their body weight as an anchor to try to slow you or drag you down to the ground. And people have been getting hurt from that. But here's the way I look at it. If it's already difficult enough to play as a defender in this league under the current set of rules. And now you're taking another way of tackling and removing that from the game. What do you really expect a 185, 195-pound cornerback or 200-pound safety to do when somebody like Travis Kelsey is coming towards them at full speed? And I can't take them head on, right? Because there's a size differential. I can't go going to hit you up high. That's a risk because if you lower your head away from what my intended target was, now I might get called for helmet on helmet contact, even though you changed where your target was by lowering your head. It wasn't me aiming for your head beforehand, right? So that's an issue. Um, I don't really want to always go for the legs because, again, that's a risk you take as a defender. They teach you to go after the legs of a bigger guy. Don't try to go up top, but you're still running the inherent risk of if you don't hit the target right, guess what? That knee pad, that thigh pad's coming up, bam, you're getting hit right here or right directly on the helmet if you're unlucky, and then boom, you're seeing stars. So now, if I try to attack you from an angle, especially if you're starting to pull away from me, let's say you got to catch over the middle of the field and you're angling up the field and I'm trying to approach you on an angle and take you down. Now I can't even grab you and try to use my 180 pounds to try to drag you to the ground out of fear that you're going to get hurt or I'm going to get a penalty. What are you really supposed to do as a defender? Not only that, but the people on this competition committee, specifically the chairperson, Rich McKay, I believe his name is Rich K or Rich McKay. He was a former executive for the Atlanta Falcons years ago. Um, you're talking about guys that have never played football and definitely haven't played at a high level, and they're coming up with these rule changes without even consulting the players. It's completely ridiculous, and you're trying to take the violence out of a game that is inherently violent. At a certain point, it's not football anymore. You're trying to make the game safer at the detriment of the product, and that's the fine line you're trying to walk. And I can say me personally, I mean, I'm a football fan. I love football, but I'm quite honestly very happy that my Eagles got a Super Bowl ring and we were able to get that out the way. So at least now I can kind of back out and go look at other sports because this is not football anymore. As JJ Watt said, you might as well just speed this process up and get to the point where we're playing two-hand touch. Make sure you pick out the colors for your flags that you want to put on your waist, and let's just get to playing two-hand touch and stop fucking around, right? Why are we doing this? The game is inherently violent. That would be the functional equivalent of trying to put rules and parameters on boxing beyond what they already have in order to try to make the sport safer. Everybody knows when you step into that ring, there's an inherent risk that you may win, but you also may lose, and you also may get knocked out. You also may get brain damage. You know that before you step into the ring. You take that risk as soon as you put those gloves on and the bell dings. Same thing with football. It's an inherently dangerous and violent sport. It's a contact sport. You can try to manipulate it and change it all you want. All you're doing by putting some of these rules in place are just making the quality of the game worse. You're diluting the quality of the product to the point that people don't even want to look at it anymore. We're already seeing some of the backlash that's coming with basketball. We take away hand checking, and then you move forward to the point where you can barely even breathe on a player without getting the foul. Give a foul that used to be a regular one back in 1985, and that's going to be a technical now. It's completely ridiculous, and it makes the NBA hard to watch. And I've never been a fan of it, but you know, I can understand why a lot of people go to watch college basketball, and now why a lot of people are going to be going to watch college football more and more because the professional products are getting watered down, diluted, and very boring. They're hard to watch. So you're trying to change these rules to one, make the game safer, and two, create more opportunities for offense. But what they don't realize is nobody wants to see an artificially inflated score. Nobody wants to see an artificially inflated product in terms of the amount of yardage and scoring and excitement that you're seeing because it's man made. It's not all natural. It's the equivalent of seeing a BBL versus a regular fat ass. Like, yeah, they're both fat, but like, I don't want to see the BBL. It looks weird. It looks odd. Like, I'm good, bro. And that's exactly the type of feeling that people are getting with the NFL. It's just like, okay, there's less high impact collisions, as we're going to get into with the kickoff. There's there are less injuries by taking horse collar out, which I'm fine with. You're trying to reduce injuries by taking out what is quote unquote the hip drop tackle. But at the end of the day, how are you going to protect the defensive players? Because now you're putting their health at a risk. You're making it a liability for them to tackle properly and correctly, especially the smaller guys, and you're putting them at risk for injury. Even I'll give you an example. You had the rule that was put in years ago where you can't go after a quarterback's knees, right? You have to make sure you hit them above the knees as you take them down. You can't hit them below the knees. And we saw an injury. I think it was a Denver Bronco. Correct me if I'm wrong. I forgot what quarterback they were trying to tackle. It was either that rule or the rule where you can't put your full body weight on the quarterback when you take him to the ground. One of those two rules. Nonetheless, a player tried to hold up and ended up blowing their knee out because they were trying to hold up to protect the quarterback and prevent a penalty, and they ended up blowing their knee out. It's like, what are you going to do for that guy? You're going to give him the money to pay for that surgery? Are you going to give him the time back that he's going to have to spend with the rehab and not being able to function normally as a person out off the football field? No, you're not. So at a certain point, you have to pick a street. You have to accept the inherent violence that's in the game and let people play. Okay, that's the risk you take. You know what time it is when you step on that field. Like, stop trying to water it down and people that haven't played the game, stay the fuck off the competition committee. That's the way I see it. And have way more input from the current players. The same way as you had more input from the current players and coaches for the special teams rule change, you should have it for the other rule changes. Okay, the only person that kind of makes sense in terms of having insight towards changing these rules would be Troy Vincent. You're talking about a Hall of Fame player, Hall of Fame Eagle, he played at a high level, so he knows exactly, and he's coming from a defensive player standpoint, right? But many other defensive players aren't going to see it the same way he does. That's why you need to have a collective of players talking about these things, not just one. So until these things change, the NFL is probably going to start a slow decline as they keep trying to quote unquote clean up the game, and ironically, they're actually just making the game worse, right? They're actually making the game more dangerous in unintended ways. So, as with these rules, you should probably have a trial version like they're going to do with this kickoff rule that I'm going to get into next. But let me know what you guys think about this one. That's my thoughts on it. I don't like it. Um, I think that you should have a lot more discussion and brainstorm and have a think tank on it before you make these drastic decisions because it's hard to walk these things back once you put them out to the public. Like Pat McAfee was saying on his episode, it's a big game and it's NFC Championship game. Let's say it's Eagles 49ers. We have a rematch. Bad blood. I'll even throw you 49er fans an olive branch. Jalen Hurts drops back. Dallas Goedert's running a straight route up the seam. Catches the ball. Goes to turn left to get away from a defender. And he sees open field. You have Fred Warner trying to close distance, close that gap, catch him from behind, and stop him before he gets down to the end zone. Now, mind you, Eagles are down by 2 points. We're trying to get in the field goal range. Fred Warner catches up to Dallas Goedert at around, let's say, the 50-yard line. It's a 15-yard pass, and around the 50-yard line, Fred Warner catches up to Dallas Goedert, brings him down with a hip drop tackle. What previously would have been a legal tackle, and he would have been stopped at the 50-yard line. Maybe there's like 30 seconds left. We got to use a timeout and figure out how we're going to get into field goal range. Instead of that, all of a sudden, flag on the play, 15 yards, and now the Eagles are down to the 35-yard line with 30 seconds left, and the clock is stopped, and we have a timeout left. You tell me how 49er Nation is going to feel about that. And then Jake Elliott, one of the best kickers besides Justin Tucker in the league, just walks out with his eyes closed and kicks the game-winning field goal. Game over. We go to the Super Bowl. Your asses go home. How are people going to feel about that in the Bay Area? How are 49ers fans in other areas around the country going to feel about that? How are NFL fans, period, that just want to see a great game and a great ending, going to feel about the outcome being decided by some bullshit like that? This is what we're talking about. And me, even as an Eagles fan, we get the win, go to the Super Bowl. I would, I'm gonna take my dub. I'm not gonna give it back, but I'm gonna feel some type of way. I'm not gonna be happy about that shit. Like I wanted to end. I wanted us to get our field goal on our own accord. I want us to earn our way to that 35-yard line and get it on our own accord, not because of some bullshit flag for a guy that's trying to tackle properly, and somebody happened to get hurt the year before, and now the rules changed and he gets a penalty for it. It's a load of bullcrap, man. So like I said, my Raiders, we got 3 rings. My Eagles, we got 1 ring. Been to two other Super Bowls. At least we got a ring in the case. So if I start not being into football as much because of all these dumbass rule changes, I'm at peace with it. Let me know what you guys think about that. And then lastly, I'm gonna get over to this kicking rule change, which I have in my iffy category. Some good things that I like about it, and some things that are just like, whoa. And Bart Scott alluded to this on his segment on ESPN earlier that I was watching. So, summary of the kickoff play proposal, Amendment 10A, proposed for 1 year only. And this rule is going to be similar to the rule that we saw in XFL, where they had the kicking team, you have 10 players lined up on the receiving team's side of the field at their 40-yard line, and the kicker kicking the ball, and he can't cross the 50-yard line until the ball touches within the landing zone, which would be between the end zone, the goal line of the receiving team, and the receiving team's 20-yard line. All right, and then the players that are lined up on the kicking team on the receiving team's 40-yard line, they can't start running until the ball is either touched by the return man or until the ball lands. Only then can they move forward. And I actually like that rule. And the receiving team is going to be, they're going to have 7 players have to be lined up on the 35-yard line, and then 3 other players can be within the 30 to 35 yard zone, whatever they call the zone, right? So that's fine. So you reduce high speed collisions. You bring the kickoff back into the game because last year it was getting ridiculous. You weren't seeing any returns, and it's like they took the play out of the game. So that I'm fine with. Also, you can't fair catch if it lands within the landing zone, which between the goal line and the 20-yard line of the receiving team, regardless of whether it if it goes into the end zone and stops there, or if it stays in the land zone and lands there, the returner has to pick up the ball. Okay, if it goes into the end zone but it doesn't go out, you have to go pick up the ball and you can take it back out if you want to, or you can down it, but you gotta touch the ball and do something with it. If it goes out of the end zone as before, then the ball is going to be taken back out to the 30-yard line, excuse me, as before. So that I'm fine with. I think that's actually good. At least we get an exciting part of the game back into the game, and the special teams coaches can get creative with that. The part I don't like is onside kicks. You will have to declare if you're going to kick an onside kick once the fourth quarter begins. Fourth quarter begins. This is as per the rule book. The team trailing, the team that is trailing, has the opportunity to declare an onside kick to the officials. Current onside kickoff rules would apply. Blah blah blah. If kick goes beyond the setup zone untouched, kicking team will be penalized for unsportsmanlike conduct, and the return team will start the drive at the kicking team's 20-yard line. Okay, cool. But my issue is that the element of surprise is gone. If you want to do an onside kick, now the opposing team knows it's coming, and that defeats the whole purpose. Like you're not going to see any more situations like Sean McVay where he did the surprise onside kick in their Super Bowl a few years ago. You're not going to see that anymore. So in that way, I hate it. So I'm torn on it. So I want to get your guys' perspective, comments on this, but I'm a little bit torn on this. So we'll see how this thing plays out in this first year and see how it goes. But I'm a little bit, I'm on the fence on this one, particularly when it comes to the onside kicks. But let me know what you guys think in the comments, and we're gonna get back to it once we get along to the draft. But for those of you that are tuning in late, I talked about the rule changes that the NFL made, particularly the hip drop tackle, and I just went over the kickoff rule. Hip drop tackle, bullshit. Kickoff rule, maybe good, maybe bad. A lot of good, a lot of bad there. So go back, replay the video, see the things I said, and let me know what you guys think. And for context, go to what's his name, Tom Palacero. I believe that's his name. Just look up Palacero on Twitter. Palacero NFL. Google it, and you'll see probably the link to his Twitter page, and he has a list of the rules for the kickoff rule changes, probably along with the other rule changes. Let me know what you guys think. All right.